There was a moment in my life when I realized something shocking, a truth so simple yet so powerful that it could change the entire direction of anyone's future. I looked at myself and asked, why do some people get everything they desire in life, while others settle for scraps? The answer was not luck. It was not background. It was not even talent. The answer was clarity, discipline, and the willingness to pay the price. I remember the days when I wished for more freedom, more success, more fulfillment. I told myself stories about what life could look like one day, but wishing alone never changed my situation. And deep inside I knew this: if I didn't act, my dreams would die as nothing more than thoughts floating in my mind. That realization hit me like a thunderbolt, and it forced me to confront the hard truth. You can get anything you desire in life, but only if you are willing to pay the price. In 2025, the opportunities around us are greater than ever before. Technology, connections, and possibilities are exploding in every direction. But none of it matters if we drift, if we hesitate, if we wait for permission to chase what we want. The world doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards action. It rewards those who decide. So as I stand here speaking to you, I want you to understand, this is not just another motivational speech. This is a decision point. If you stay with me until the end, you will see exactly how to transform your desires into reality. Not through luck, not through shortcuts, but through a proven path that anyone, including you, can walk. And it begins right here. When I look back at my own journey, I realize that everything began with a spark, a single desire, a quiet voice inside that whispered, "There is more for you than this." At first it didn't feel like much. It wasn't a thunderstorm of motivation or a clear map to the future. It was just a spark, a restless feeling that I was meant for something greater. But here's the problem. Most people feel that same spark and then let it die. They confuse desire with destiny. They say they want freedom, success, wealth, love, but they never take that first uncomfortable step. I know this because I was once that person. I would daydream about success while scrolling through distractions, convincing myself that one day things would magically change. But one day never comes if all you do is wish. I remember the season in my life when I had no clear plan, only vague wants. I wanted more money. I wanted freedom. But when someone asked me how much money, what kind of freedom, I had no answer. And because my answers were unclear, my actions were inconsistent. I would start strong for a week, then stop. I would set a goal in the morning and forget it by the evening. And the result? Frustration. Nothing moved forward. That's when I realized something critical. Desire alone is not enough. The world doesn't reward those who simply want. It rewards those who define, those who act, those who stay. And yet the spark of desire is still necessary, because without it, there is no beginning. It is the engine, the ignition, but the fuel must come later, and the steering must be built. Think of it like this. A spark can light a fire, but only if you protect it, feed it, and give it oxygen. Without attention, it goes out. The same is true for desire. I learned the hard way that if I didn't nurture my spark, if I didn't convert that restless energy into discipline and direction, it would fade into regret. So I ask you this. What is your spark right now? What is the quiet desire inside you that refuses to be silenced? Don't dismiss it. Don't bury it under excuses. Recognize it, because desire is the birthplace of all achievement. But here is the warning. If you leave it unprotected, it will slip away, and you will join the millions who live in quiet desperation, always wishing, but never moving. I refused to let that happen to me. I decided my spark would not just flicker. It would grow into a fire. And once I made that decision, I discovered the next great truth. Clarity is power, because desire without definition is just smoke. But when you know exactly what you want, your fire becomes unstoppable. I still remember the moment I realized that my life wasn't moving forward, not because I lacked desire, but because I lacked clarity. I had the spark, yes, the restless hunger for more, But what exactly did more mean? For years I told myself, I want more money. I want freedom. I want success. But when I looked in the mirror and asked how much money, what kind of freedom, what does success actually look like for me? I had no answer. That was the turning point. I understood that my mind couldn't hit a target it couldn't see, and so I began to write things down. I took a blank page and asked myself, if nothing was impossible, what would I truly want? At first my answers were messy, but the more I wrote, the clearer they became. Instead of saying I want more money, I wrote, I want to earn $10,000 a month through work I love. Instead of saying I want freedom, I wrote, I want the ability to wake up every day and choose how to spend my time without fear of bills or limitations. The difference was night and day. Suddenly my brain had a picture. My desire stopped being a cloud of hope and became a concrete image. And once I could see it, I could begin to build it. Clarity gave my actions direction. Most people drift because they never take this step. They keep their desires vague, and vague desires produce vague results. I know this because I lived that cycle, starting and stopping, working hard but going nowhere. The truth is simple. Until you define what you want, your effort will always be scattered. So here's what I did, and what I want you to do. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Visualize it. Make it so real in your mind that it feels inevitable. See the numbers in your bank account. See the house, the career, the body, the relationship. Whatever it is, picture it so vividly that your subconscious begins to believe it's already yours. Because when your mind accepts it as real, your body will begin to move toward it. The day I defined my goals with precision was the day everything shifted. I was no longer just wishing, I was aiming. And when you aim with clarity, your energy aligns, your decisions sharpen, and your excuses disappear. So if you truly want to get anything you desire in life, start here. Don't just want it vaguely. Define it with power. Make it clear. Because once your desire is definite, your actions will be consistent. And consistent action is the bridge between imagination and reality. That's when I understood the next great truth. Everything in life has a price. You can have it yet, but you must be willing to pay the cost in effort, in time, in sacrifice. And that's the lesson I was about to learn now. When I finally gained clarity about what I wanted, I thought the hard part was over. I believed that once I defined my goals, life would somehow open the doors and let me walk through. But I was wrong. That's when the real lesson arrived. The truth that everything in life carries a price tag. Nothing worth having is free. And the moment you accept that truth, your entire approach to life changes. I remember sitting down with my journal and reading my goals out loud. They felt exciting. They felt powerful. But almost instantly, a second question hit me. What am I willing to give in exchange for this? That's the part most people ignore. Everyone wants success, but few are willing to trade comfort for growth. Everyone wants wealth, but few are willing to sacrifice their time, their excuses, their bad habits. I had to look myself in the mirror and be brutally honest. If I wanted financial freedom, the price was discipline, late nights of learning, early mornings of work, giving up easy entertainment. If I wanted health, the price was movement, clean choices, sweat, and consistency. If I wanted influence, the price was vulnerability, rejection, and the courage to keep speaking even when no one listened. At first I resisted. I told myself stories like, it shouldn't be this hard, or maybe I'll wait until the timing is better. But every time I tried to avoid the price, I stayed stuck. Every shortcut led me back to the same place, frustration. And then one day it hit me with absolute clarity. You don't get to negotiate the price of success. You only get to decide whether you'll pay it. The beautiful part is this. Once I embraced the cost, I began to grow stronger. Every sacrifice stopped feeling like a loss and started feeling like an investment. When I said no to distractions, I wasn't missing out. I was building discipline. When I stayed focused while others drifted, I wasn't losing friends. I was gaining momentum. The very things that once felt painful became the proof that I was serious about my desire. And here's the truth I discovered. Paying the price doesn't weaken you. It shapes you into the person worthy of holding the reward. Because if the prize came without effort, you wouldn't respect it, and you wouldn't keep it. The process is designed to transform you before it blesses you. So I want you to ask yourself the same question that changed me. What am I willing to give in exchange for what I want? Because once you answer that with honesty, your path becomes clear. That's when I learned the next great principle, the power of discipline and mindset. Paying the price was not just about action, it was about protecting my mind, guarding my focus, and staying anchored when distractions tried to pull me away. And that, my friend, is where the battle truly begins. Once I accepted that everything I desired had a price, I realized something even deeper. Paying the price is not just about action. It's about mindset. Because here's the truth. The world will test you the moment you commit to a goal. Distractions will multiply. Doubts will creep in. People will question your choices. And unless your mind is anchored like steel, you'll get swept away. I went through this myself. I remember the day I made a bold declaration. I will change my life. At first I felt unstoppable, but within days my old habits came knocking. My phone lit up with endless distractions. Friends invited me out when I had work to do. My own inner voice whispered, "Take it easy, you deserve a break." And suddenly I saw why most people never make it. Because their minds aren't trained for the storm. That's when I began to feed my mind daily. Just like the body needs food, the mind needs fuel. I started reading books that stretched my vision. I wrote my goals every morning until they burned into my subconscious. I repeated affirmations not once, not when I felt like it, but every day. I became the gatekeeper of my mind, deciding carefully what I allowed in, because I knew what came in would eventually flow out through my actions. And it wasn't just about positivity. Discipline meant being emotionally steady when things went wrong. I had failures, rejections, setbacks that made me want to quit. There were nights I sat alone, questioning if any of this was worth it, but I learned that setbacks are not signals to stop. They are tests to see if you're serious. Each obstacle was like a filter, separating the committed from the casual. One phrase changed everything for me. Guard your thoughts like your life depends on it. Because it does. The way I thought determined the way I acted, and the way I acted shaped my results. Discipline wasn't punishment. It was protection. It protected my dream from being stolen by doubt. It protected my time from being wasted by distractions. It protected my energy from being drained by negativity. Slowly, my identity began to shift. I no longer saw myself as someone who tried. I became someone who followed through. My friends noticed it. My family noticed it. But most importantly, I noticed it. And that shift gave me confidence I had never felt before. And then I discovered another secret. Waiting for perfect timing is the greatest trap. Discipline taught me this. Action must come before motivation. You don't wait until you feel ready. You move and the readiness catches up later. That realization would soon carry me into the next chapter of my journey. The power of acting before I felt prepared. Discipline taught me one of the greatest truths of life. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll be waiting forever. I used to believe that success would begin once I had everything lined up perfectly, the right plan, the right money, the right timing. But the more I waited, the more I realized perfection never comes. Conditions are never perfect. And if I kept waiting, my life would pass me by. I remember one specific moment that changed me. I had been planning a project for months, telling myself I was almost ready. Every day I added another detail, convinced I needed just one more piece before I could begin. But deep inside I knew the truth. I was hiding behind preparation. I was afraid to fail. I thought, what if I start and it doesn't work? What if I look foolish? One morning I woke up and asked myself a harder question. What if I never start? What if I waste my entire life waiting? That question burned in me more than the fear of failure. And so I decided not someday, not next week, but that very day, to take action. Even if it was messy. Even if it was imperfect. And do you know what happened? The moment I moved, clarity followed. The moment I acted, the fear shrank. That's when I learned this principle. Progress creates clarity, and action breeds confidence. You don't wait for confidence to begin. You gain confidence by beginning. The man who hesitates, who waits for all the lights to turn green before he leaves the driveway, will never go anywhere. But the man who steps forward into uncertainty, who learns as he moves, that man gains ground while everyone else is still standing still. I failed at times, yes. I stumbled. I made mistakes that embarrassed me. But each time I grew. Each time I became sharper, stronger, and more resilient. I discovered that imperfect action will always beat perfect inaction. Waiting produces nothing. Moving creates momentum. So when people ask me today, how did you start? I tell them honestly, I didn't start because I was ready. I started because I was tired of waiting, and that one decision made all the difference. Now let me tell you this. Whatever you desire, wealth, freedom, health, influence, the path will never present itself with flashing signs saying now is the time. The time is always now. If you step forward, the path reveals itself. If you hesitate, the path fades away. That decision to act before I felt ready didn't just give me progress. It reshaped my identity. Because every step forward wasn't just about what I was doing. It was about who I was becoming. And that realization brought me to the next powerful truth. You must become the kind of person who is worthy of what you desire. Taking action before I was ready taught me something even more important. Success isn't just about what you do. It's about who you become. I realized that I could set all the goals in the world. I could write them down and even take action. But if my identity, the way I saw myself, didn't change, I would sabotage my own progress. For years I saw myself as average. I told myself, I'm not disciplined enough, I'm not lucky enough, I'm not that type of person, and without realizing it, my actions always bent to match that story. If I believed I was inconsistent, I found ways to prove it. If I believed I wasn't worthy of success, I made decisions that kept me small. But then I asked myself a hard question. What if the only thing standing between me and everything I desire is the story I keep repeating about who I am? That question shook me. I realized that the man who desires greatness cannot keep the identity of someone who settles. You cannot chase freedom while secretly believing you are trapped. You cannot pursue wealth while believing deep down that you're destined for struggle. So I began to change my story. I started saying to myself, I am disciplined, I am focused, I am worthy of success. At first it felt strange. My results hadn't caught up yet, but I spoke it as if it were already true. And something incredible happened. My actions began to rise to meet my new identity. I started following through, not because I forced myself to, but because I was aligning with the person I believed myself to be. Here's what I discovered. Identity always precedes results. Your brain wants to keep your behavior aligned with your belief. If you believe you're average, you'll act average. But if you believe you are exceptional, your actions will slowly begin to reflect that belief. One of the most powerful shifts in my journey was realizing that no one was coming to save me. Not friends, not mentors, If I was going to succeed, it had to come from the person I decided to become. That realization gave me freedom. Because I no longer waited on anyone else. I became the architect of my own life. And that's what I want you to understand. If you want to get anything you desire in life, you must upgrade your identity to match your vision. Decide who you are today, not someday. Live now as the person you want to become. And watch how quickly your world begins to shift. This change in identity unlocked another secret for me, momentum. Because once I believed I was disciplined, I built habits that matched that belief. Once I saw myself as focused, I created an environment that reinforced it. And that's when I discovered the next great truth. Sustaining momentum through habits, surroundings, and consistency is the real engine of lasting success. Once my identity began to change, I noticed something powerful. Momentum. For the first time, I wasn't just pushing myself forward with willpower. My actions were flowing naturally because they were aligned with who I believed I was. But I also discovered that momentum is fragile. If you don't protect it, it slips away. That's when I realized sustaining momentum requires three things: habits, environment, and consistency. The first was habits. I stopped waiting for motivation and started relying on structure. I built small, repeatable actions that moved me closer to my goals every single day. Waking up early, writing my goals, exercising, reading. None of these things gave me instant results, but they stacked like bricks. One brick didn't look like much, but after weeks, then months, I could see the wall being built. That's the secret most people miss. Greatness is not built in one massive action, but in tiny disciplines repeated daily. The second was environment. I learned that my surroundings were either pulling me closer to my goals or quietly dragging me away from them. I had to be ruthless about what and who I allowed near me. Negative voices, time-wasting habits, energy-draining environments. I began to cut them off. At the same time, I surrounded myself with inspiration. Books, mentors, podcasts, even the images on my wall. I created a space that reminded me daily of who I was becoming. And the third was consistency. This, more than anything else, is where most people fall short. They start strong but fade when the excitement wears off. I know because I used to be that person. But I discovered a simple truth. Consistency beats intensity. A small step taken every day will always outlast a big step taken once in a while. Success is not about what you do occasionally, it's about what you do relentlessly. There were days when I didn't feel like showing up. Days when progress seemed invisible. Days when I questioned whether it was worth it. But those were the days that mattered most. Because every time I pushed through when it wasn't easy, I proved to myself that I was serious. And that proof built self-respect. And once you respect yourself, everything changes. The beauty of momentum is that once you sustain it, it starts working for you. The habits become automatic. The environment carries you instead of holding you back. The consistency builds results you can't ignore. And that's when I realized something even deeper. After you've built momentum, the greatest danger is not failure, it's comfort. Because comfort whispers, you've done enough. But the truth is, that's when you must push harder. And that became the next lesson I had to face. The final test of comfort, patience, and legacy. Momentum carried me further than I ever imagined. My habits were strong, my environment supported me, and my consistency built results I could see and feel. But then came the hardest test of all, comfort. The very thing I thought I was working for almost became the trap that could destroy everything. I remember the first time I started to see real progress. Money began to flow in. People noticed the changes in me. Opportunities opened up. For a moment I felt unstoppable. But that's when the quiet voice of comfort crept in. It whispered, "You've done enough. You can slow down now. Take it easy." And I'll be honest, I almost listened. Because comfort feels good. It feels safe. But comfort is dangerous. Comfort is the silent enemy of greatness. I had to remind myself. I wasn't building this life just to sit back and drift again. I wasn't working this hard just to stop at good enough. I had to push beyond comfort and keep climbing. Because the real test of a man is not whether he can rise from struggle, but whether he can keep rising after success. And then came the second part of this test. Patience. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, I wanted results fast. When progress slowed, I grew restless. I questioned whether I was moving forward at all. But I realized that the greatest rewards take time. You don't plant a seed today and expect a tree tomorrow. You water it, nurture it, and protect it day after day, long before you see any fruit. There were seasons when it felt like no one noticed my effort. No applause, no recognition, no obvious payoff. But those were the seasons that forged my character. Because true success is not about being seen, it's about being steady. The man who keeps building when no one is watching is the man who eventually stands where everyone else wished they could. That's when I began to think beyond myself. What legacy was I building? What would remain after me? I realized that my desire was never just about money or status. It was about becoming a person whose life was a blueprint for others. A person whose story proved that discipline, patience, and consistency could create transformation. And that truth kept me moving forward when comfort tempted me to stop and impatience urged me to quit. I understood then that the final test was not external at all. It wasn't the obstacles outside of me. It was the battle within me. Could I stay hungry after progress? Could I stay patient when results were slow? Could I keep building not just for today, but for the man I wanted to become? Looking back, I see that everything I gained, every lesson, every breakthrough, every victory, came down to one simple but life-altering truth. Success begins with a decision. Not a wish, not a hope, not a vague dream, but a firm, unshakable decision. I remember the exact moment it hit me. I was tired of drifting. I was tired of making excuses. I was tired of living beneath what I knew was possible. And in that moment, I made a decision that I would no longer live as the man I used to be. I decided to pay the price. I decided to guard my mind. I decided to act. Even before I was ready, I decided to shape my identity into the person worthy of my desire. That decision changed everything. And here's the truth. Anyone can make that decision. It doesn't require luck, talent, or a perfect background. It only requires the courage to say, enough. From this day forward, I am no longer waiting. I am building. I am becoming. Most people spend their entire lives wondering what could have been. They drift in comfort, hesitate in fear, and leave this world with their dreams still inside them. But that doesn't have to be your story. You can decide differently. You can decide today. I've learned that the world doesn't reward the man who almost committed. It doesn't open doors for the man who almost took action. It rewards the man who decides, who moves, who refuses to stop until the desire inside becomes reality. So here I stand, as living proof. You can get anything you desire in life. Not someday, not in theory, but in reality. The price is real. The challenges are real, but so are the rewards. And if you're willing to pay that price, if you're willing to keep moving when others stop, then nothing is out of reach. The decision is yours. Right now, will you drift another year waiting for the perfect moment? Or will you decide, here and now, to become the person worthy of everything you desire? I made my decision, and it changed my life. Now it's your turn.